So yes, I'm Melinda Corey, and I am lots of things. I live in central Maine, rural central Maine, with my husband and my teenage son and our cats. And my day job, I am an outreach specialist for a program called Help Me Grow, which helps families with young children to get connected with various resources that they need to support their children's development. So lots of systems and resource navigation for families all over the state of Maine. I also do training for resource parents. So my husband and I previously were therapeutic foster parents. And so I do some training for that, as well as some training for early care and education providers. So lots of little side gigs. And up until last summer, my husband and I were the children and family coordinators at St. Mark's Episcopal in Waterville, Maine, and taking a break from that, primarily due to my parents getting older and needing more of my time for their care. It's just the stage of life we're in. So good old sandwich generation over here in central Maine. And so I'm very flattered that when they asked me to speak tonight, I'm certainly not a fancy expert or anything, but I'm happy to share what our experience has been and hope that it will resonate with folks.
I had heard some meeting or another, Melinda was sharing some of the stuff they were doing, and I thought it was so cool. And I couldn't remember who shared it with me. And then we were in another meeting, and I was telling about it, and she said, "Oh, that was me." So I was so glad that I kind of found her again and was able to bring some of her ideas here. So on to you.
Okay, I'm going to try to share the right thing here with you. Okay, are you seeing what you should see, or are you seeing like my notes?
Uh, I see what helping hands, the what helping hands across
Oh,
ages.
good. Lovely. It worked. Okay. So yes, so this is what we're talking about tonight. So intergenerational service projects as a monthly ministry model. Um, there'll be lots of time at the end for questions and discussions, but if you have something that you want to throw out there as I'm speaking, please feel free. I'm not super formal. Just, unmute and speak up, or if something goes in the chat, I won't see it, but I'm sure Lene will let me know if something goes in the chat. Oh, oh. Wait, can you hear
There,
me?
now I can.
So I think that I may have made I didn't know this. I think I accidentally set these slides to an animation with music, and I don't know how to turn the music off. I'm gonna just unshare for 1 second. I'm so sorry. I give presentations constantly, and I promise this has never happened. Uh, wow. Okay.
Tech, it's wonderful and it's horrible at the same time. It always,
Just 1 minute. I'm going to see if I can go into the settings of the slides and turn off the animation. I'll be right with you. I'm so sorry. Oh gosh.
we'll get it.
All right, I think I might have it. Let's try this again.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your patience. Are you seeing a slide without music playing?
Yes.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. The music was very jazzy, actually. It wasn't bad, but nothing we need to listen to in the background. So I wanted to kind of start out with just a quick overview of why we ended up with this idea of intergenerational service projects at our parish. So in part, it was just inherited from a previous coordinator to a degree. Our previous children and families coordinator was doing very occasional service projects a couple of times a year, just with kids for the most part. And those were often done between services. So our parish at that time had an 8 o'clock service and 10:30 service. And so around 9 o'clock, so like if people wanted to stay after the 8 o'clock or come early for the 10:30, they could do this sort of in between project. And on those Sundays, it would kind of take the place of, if there was another activity that might be happening at that time, it would maybe take the place of it those couple of times a year. So the seed of the idea started that way. When we took over as children and family coordinators, a few things happened that caused us to think we might want to build on that and shifted a little bit over time. And so one thing that we noticed was that these service projects were a real draw for families with kids. They were generally pretty well attended, which at our very small rural parish, has been a tough sell. It's even tougher since COVID, as I'm sure many of you can resonate. But we found that these were popular activities. We also have to think about ourselves in our smaller parish as what we always refer to as like a one-room schoolhouse model, because we don't have the number of children or adults to work with the children in a volunteer capacity to break things up by ages. And so whatever we came up with in our 8 years of ministry at St. Mark's really had to be something that we could modify to work for whatever ages of kids showed up with their families. Another reason why this evolved and has remained popular, I think, is because it does meet practical needs in our community. We've always found that our parish has been very generous with their time, their funds. They love to serve, and so it feels good to meet a practical need. And so that's, I think, been a big part of why this has been popular as well. And it has shifted over time. When we first started doing these service projects more often and moving them more to monthly from just a couple of times a year, it was still primarily children with maybe just a couple of adults helping out. But it has really evolved into being fully open to the whole parish over time and to more full participation, which is really wonderful. So thinking about kind of the who of these projects, really anyone. So we've experienced that it's not really about age so much. We've observed that participation has really been by ability and by interest. And so that's exciting for me to see, because a lot of my education and work outside of the church has been in actually in the disability field. So disability rights, special education, family advocacy. And so I love it when things are not all about what number you are because of the day you were born, but rather about what are you interested in? What do you want to do? What are you able to do? Those kinds of things. And so we get pretty broad parish participation now for lots of the projects, as I mentioned, but we also have worked to find ways to include the community in these. And I'll talk about some examples of that. So thinking about the where of where these service projects have happened, It really varies by project. Some of them are fully taking place in our parish or at our church. Primarily in our fellowship hall where there's good space for it. You can see here an adult and two teens doing one of our meal service projects, putting together meals for our local homeless shelter. And they're doing that in our parish fellowship hall. That's my son in the blue shirt with the black mask. Others of the projects may begin or end at the church building, but involve other things in the community. So for example, if we go on a litter walk, which we often do for a spring service project, because when the snow melts, if you live in a place with snow, you know that when the snow melts, there's often a lot of litter left behind that has kind of been building up in layers of snow all winter. And so spring can be very messy in our neighborhood. And so that is a project where we begin at church and gather all our supplies, go out into the neighborhood to actually complete the project, and then return to church to finish up. And sometimes things may involve other community locations. So we have a service project where we pack diapers for our local essentials closet. We're going to talk more in depth about that in just a moment. But that's an example where we're able to actually visit that essentials closet and to be seeing the work that they're doing. And that's really impactful. So I would encourage folks, as you're thinking about this, if it's something you decide to pursue, that you think about how you might be able to branch out into the community and take these projects outside the walls of the church. We found that to be really, really important and really beneficial.
Is that hard to do if you have younger children involved?
It can be. So the parents obviously have to be on board, right? Like it's not everything works for every family, but we've had, for example, with the diaper project, we pack the diapers up at church and then we deliver them to the essentials closet right away. And so sometimes some families or parish members might stay behind at church and others might go on the delivery run and see the actual place. So we try to have a lot of flexibility for whatever works. So again, participate at your family's level of ability and interest. Not everybody has to participate or engage at the exact same level or in the exact same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great question, though. Yeah. So thinking about when, this obviously is going to vary wildly based on your parish's schedule, right? So we have tried a lot of different things over the years, and sometimes what works well changes. What worked well 8 years ago doesn't necessarily work as well now post-COVID. A lot of things have shifted. So it can vary by schedule. It can vary by project. So if there's a project that you have two services and you want more folks to be able to engage, maybe you want to have it between the two services. But if it's a project where you know you're going to be delivering something at the end of the project, maybe you want to do it after all the services are over so that there's then time to go deliver the items and people aren't worried about being back at church for the next service or missing anything. So again, it's going to look really different just based on what your church looks like. The thing that we have found that is the very best thing is to pair the service project with something else already going on at church that people are there and interested in. And so lately, we've been doing our service projects after church during coffee hour. And we have found that that has been really engaging for a broad variety of folks. They get their coffee and their muffin and their grapes, and then they come into the fellowship hall and snack while they work on the project. So there might be other times in your parish that are popular that you just know a lot of people are going to be around. It's a really obvious time to think about this. It might be different at your parish than mine, but I've gone to a lot of churches in my life, and they've all loved coffee hour. So that has been very successful for us as a rule. Um, the other thing around when is this idea of monthly. So you don't have to do this monthly. That's what we have generally done. Part of that was because when we were fully engaged in that ministry, we were very part-time, only 2 Sundays a month for actual sort of programming. And so what we would generally do for those 2 Sundays was one sort of seasonal intergenerational service. So we might do like a gratitude intergenerational service in November around the time of Thanksgiving. And then the other Sunday of our ministry, we would plan a service project. And so one every month for the school year was generally our model. Our number of families with children that attend in the summer plummets. Being in New England, everyone is like at camp or at the lake, or they're it's just generally not many children around in the summer. So that's something else to think about, is if you want to pursue some of these things, will it be a couple of times a year? Do we want to just test it out once and see what happens? Do we want to plunge in and think about making this a monthly thing? Those kinds of things. And then I made a note here about home-based options, because we have had some projects that are things that folks can work on at home during the week. So for example, if we're making Valentine's cards for homebound church members or other members of the community that could use cheering up, that's something that families of any type, really anybody from the parish, can work on at home and then come together to, on a Sunday, to bless the cards, and the church mails them out, for example. So we have had occasional projects where we've been able to incorporate a home-based option as well. And that was very helpful, in particular during COVID, when we had to try to get really creative about how we did these things. So in these pictures here, you can see one of the projects that I have just loved. We have a physician in our church. She's retired now, but Sarah Roberts, a physician's assistant actually, who works with the Maine Mobile Health Program. And that's a health program that travels around the state with like a health mobile, and meets the medical needs of migrant workers who are here seasonally to harvest the crops in Maine, generally in August, because it takes a really long time for things to start growing in Maine. And so she, for several years, did a service project where she would teach the group a little bit about what it is like to be a migrant worker. What are some of the crops here in Maine that people come here to harvest? What is their experience like? And then that's what you can see in the bottom picture, is some of the adults sitting around the table during the learning time. And then in the top picture, you can see Sarah helping some of the children with making rice socks. So they are making those rice socks you can put in the microwave and heat up for sore muscles. And so then Sarah would hand those out to migrant workers that she would encounter in her work there. And so this is one of the things we've been able to do with some of the projects, is incorporating a parish member who has a passion for something and allowing them to share that passion with the rest of the parish through a project like this. So that's been really neat as well.
That's such a great way to connect the why. Why are we doing this?
Yes, and it's also, we found, great for, in particular for the kids, to see other adults doing all sorts of interesting things that that they are passionate about, instead of me and my husband just always being the people, right? So it's good for them to experience the body of Christ, that there really are many parts doing many different things. So I wanted to dig a little deeper into one example of a project and talk through some of the details, just to give a sense of what it looks like. There's only a few more slides, I promise, and then you can all talk. But one of the most popular projects that we do every year is our annual diaper drive. So the reason that we started doing this project is really because of a felt need in our community. Maine has a lot of diaper need and very limited resources to meet that need. So in the state, the entire state of Maine, there are 2 diaper banks. And one of them is closed to new clients for the next 2 years, to give an example of the lack that there is. And as we probably all know, diapers are very necessary, but they cannot be purchased with common resources such as SNAP benefits or WIC benefits, or Medicare, Medicaid. And so unless there's some sort of medical reason why the diapers are needed. But for your average baby that needs diapers, there's very little out there in our area for that. And so we have a diaper drive. And so this involves our parish very heavily. Lots of people donate diapers, but it also brings in our local essentials closet. And so the essentials closet is like a food pantry, but for non-food items. So they have shampoo, toilet paper, dish soap, feminine hygiene products, diapers, all these kinds of things. And it's a place where people can go to access those items that they cannot buy with their other benefits cards when they are in need. And so we partnered up with them. And the first few years of this project, when we were just getting to know the Essentials Closet, we would actually visit them for like a presentation. They would share, they would show us the whole room. They would explain what they do, who comes, how often, how many people are they reaching, all these kinds of things. Now that we've been doing this every year for several years, we have less need for that level of education around the resource, but we do still visit the Essentials Closet every year to drop off the diapers that we have gathered. So for this project, we start probably about a month ahead publicizing it's time for diaper drive. Here's where you can drop off your diapers and wipes at the church. We designate a location. We also let folks know if you would like to make a monetary donation directed to this, we're happy to shop for you. We share with people like in the e-news and in the Sunday service where there are good deals on diapers that week, or if you're using your grocery store app, there's a great coupon. So we gather all these diapers and wipes over the course of about a month. And then when the day of the actual service project comes, we set up like this. So you can see this big square or rectangle of tables surrounded by people of lots of ages. So we set all the diapers up by size, and then we buy lots of Ziploc bags because the way the diapers are given out, they're not giving like a whole box. They package them into smaller sets so that they stretch further. And so we unpackage all the diapers and we package them up in Ziploc bags, label them by size, and then rebox them to be delivered to the essentials pantry. And so I love in this picture that you can see we have one of our youngest members, Mila, down here in the front. You can see her head in her pink dress. She's 1 in this picture. And she's just wandering around enjoying the activity. She has, you can't see it, but she has like a muffin in her hand from coffee hour. And she's just, she's just there spreading joy and being part of it. There's not a lot that she can actually do, but she's still there and engaged, and everyone just loves it. On the left side of the table by those red boxes, you can see a member who is seated. She has some mobility issues, and so she joins almost every service project and finds a place where she can sit, and we bring her whatever she needs to participate. Next to her, you can see 2 teenagers. They have done this project almost every year since it started. So they were little girls when it started. They're teenagers now. And then all around the table, you can see folks of different ages, all kind of engaging together. And so people do what they can. Some folks are, struggle with the packing and getting things stuffed into bags, and they just have a Sharpie and they're labeling the bags with the sizes. It just really, like I said, depends on their interest, their ability, how they'd like to participate. And because we're one body with many parts, it generally feels like it comes together pretty well. It all gets done by somebody in the end, which is really awesome to see. So we always count the diapers because it's fun to see year to year how many we've collected. And we're a little parish, and we generally collect, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of diapers. So this is a really popular example of a project. If you're interested in learning more about diaper need, I have a link. Lenny, do these slides ever get sent out to participants?
They'll be on a YouTube channel.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I have links in the notes. They're not in the slides, so you can't see them, but I do have links in the notes for some resources around these projects. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that. So some other projects that we have engaged with that have been really great. We have a little free pantry. This has been wildly popular. Some of you may be familiar with little free pantries. If you're familiar with the concept of little free library, which came around first, a little free pantry is similar, but it's a box that is outside our church on a post that is full of non-perishable food and hygiene products that anybody can stop and give, anybody can stop and take. So we have folks that come by and drop stuff off in the box, and folks that come by and take things. We're in a really interesting place geographically in our parish, where across the street one way is a hospital with a very large local substance use disorder treatment program located on the property. And then in another direction across the street, we have a huge YMCA with Boys and Girls Club and all kinds of things going on. So we're in a great location for traffic for people that might need things, and we wanted to capitalize on it. So you can see here a couple of ladies from our parish are painting this. I couldn't put in nearly as many pictures as I wanted, but there were kids and adults who helped with all kinds of aspects of this. So we needed folks who were comfortable actually putting together a wooden box and putting a door on it. We needed folks who were comfortable painting. We needed folks who were happy to just donate items to go inside it. And so there, again, lots of different ways that people could participate in this. And now in our e-news every week, we highlight items of the week that are needed for our little free pantry. It changes seasonally because some of the things we would put in it in the summer would freeze in the winter here and be ruined. So it varies. We've actually now had community members leaving little notes in the box saying things like, "Thank you so much. This is such a blessing. Could you add some drinks, some bottled water?" So that's been really neat too, to see that folks are engaging with it. We have folks that work at the hospital say that they've come over to drop stuff off to donate. So it's drawing in a lot of people who typically would not be on our church's property whatsoever. And it's made for some interesting conversations for sure. We do care kits every year. We're just coming up on care kits in a couple of weeks now. So care kits are Ziploc bags we create with all kinds of things in them that you might need if you are unhoused or someone that is spending a lot of time outdoors for whatever reason. So they have like nice socks. Here's a hot tip: if you do a care kit project, find your local Bombas sock partner. So the company Bombas, for every pair of socks they sell, they donate a pair. They have local giving partners all over the country, hundreds and hundreds of them. And we just found our local giving partner on the Bombas website, reached out, and they're giving us 250 pairs of socks. And these are like nice $20 pairs of socks. So we're very excited. Um, so those bags have socks, granola bars, little bottles of water, little can openers, nail clippers, chapsticks, band-aids, all kinds of things. And it's just like a little comfort kit. And people, so we pack these, and then people from the parish keep them in their vehicles to give out in the community. But they also hand them out to community helpers. So we have, again, getting out into the community to other locations. We have parish members who visit the library and leave some there, who visit the local police department and put them in the officers' vehicles for when they encounter people. So that's another example of how we're doing something at church, but we're trying to also push it out beyond the walls of the church. One of the things that
That's such a great idea to give it to the library, the police.
yeah, we tried to think of where are
Yeah.
people spending their days if they have nowhere to go. And the library is generally, at least in our communities, that's often the place.
Yeah.
So one of the things the kids love with that project is we have an old shopping cart at our church from a store that closed. And the kids fill the shopping cart with all the care kits, and they get to wheel it to the front of the sanctuary to be blessed at the offering. And so they get a kick out of that. So maybe consider investing in an old shopping cart if that sounds like something kids in your parish would like. Another example of something we did that pulled together generations in a really nice way for Veterans Day, or whatever the Sunday was closest to Veterans Day, we had veterans in our parish share stories with of their service. Nothing, obviously, all ages of kids there, so nothing too scary or violent, but we had them talk about their training and did they fly planes, or did they, what did they do in the service, and where did they serve? And then we worked together. You can see in the picture above the Veterans Gratitude, they're working on cards that we created to be sent to local veterans, gratitude cards. And so, again, pulling in people from the parish who have had a life experience of something to share that is valuable to people of other ages. Generally, in our parish, the veterans are older adults. Obviously, veterans are many ages, but for us, this was a nice way to kind of pull together some of the older people and much younger people in the parish. And then I already talked about litter walks. Litter walks are a little trickier ability-wise, because if you have folks with mobility challenges, it may be a little more challenging to participate. We do have folks that come with, you can see here in the picture with a stroller so that babies can participate. Sometimes folks will bring a pet and walk their dog while we're doing the litter walk. And sometimes folks are back at the church waiting for us to return. They like to see how much we gathered. And then we say a prayer of blessing over creation all together at the end to kind of tie it together. So those are just a few examples. Some of the other things that we've done, we've made meals to deliver to the local homeless shelter. We have on All Saints Day put together bouquets of flowers and made cards to deliver to folks in our church that we call living saints, that are maybe not able to be there with us that day, but we want them to know that they are remembered. We have, not every year, but most years, have done some baking for the annual meeting. And we will sometimes do extra baking to deliver to whatever place in the community might be giving out food that week. And then another one that people tend to really love, I don't know if this is available widely, but in our area, we have something called Anna Meals. So like animals, but Anna Meals, like eating. And so this is a program of our local Meals on Wheels, where they also deliver pet food with meals. so that folks who are receiving Meals on Wheels are more likely to be able to keep their pets longer if they can't afford pet food. And so for that, we would have people, similar to diapers, we would prep ahead, please bring, dry cat and dog food to donate. And then we're packaging it into smaller bags to be added to a bag for Meals on Wheels. So I have links for a lot of those things in the notes. And so I wanted to open it up for discussion. I'm going to unshare the slides, but so we can all look at each other while we talk. But I'd love to know if your wheels are turning, if you have ideas of what this might look like in your ministry or your parish or congregation. You can see here, this is folks working on Valentine's cards, like I mentioned, and then the picture to the right is a recipient. We have a nursing home here in Maine that is on an island. We still have a few year-round island communities in Maine. And on one of these islands, there is a nursing home so that residents who have lived on the island their whole life don't have to go to the mainland when they are older and need some additional help. And so we made Valentines for the residents of the island nursing facility. And we were fortunate that they shared some pictures back to us. So I will unshare the slides. Okay, great. So yeah, I've definitely talked enough. So I'm happy to hear other people's thoughts. I can take questions and hopefully I can answer them.
Questions, comments? What's going through your mind? Jennifer?
So our church, pre-pandemic, we started a program that was similar to what you're describing, Melinda, called Meal and Mission, where we would have an intergenerational meal together and some discussion, and there would be like a some kind of learning thing that we would do, and then we would do some kind of service project. I think a couple of the most popular things that we did. So we're in an urban area, so our context is a little bit different. So so we have a big food bank, food pantry called Network, and one of the things that we really enjoyed doing intergenerationally was putting together birthday bags for the food pantry. So essentially, we took, like gift bags, and we put in like an aluminum pan and a cake mix and some frosting and just anything that you would put into for a child's birthday party. And then we delivered and then made cards, also birthday cards, for the kits, and then delivered those to the food pantry, and they give them out to families with children who are having birthdays.
I love this.
If you're going to
adding it to my list.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, there's some recipes online for making a cake with soda. So you don't need eggs, you don't need oil, you don't need any of that.
Right.
Which is great for something like that. So you can look it up. I remember seeing it and going, I know what I can use it for.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things we've seen and heard from community members using our little free pantry, and it's been a really helpful learning experience actually, because initially, it still happens. We're about 6 months in on the little free pantry, but initially people would bring things like pancake mix. And so, we actually, one Sunday morning when we were loading up the little free pantry after church, some folks stopped by to use it, and we got into a conversation about like what is helpful about this, what could be more helpful. And they said it's really helpful as much as possible if things are ready to go, because a box of pancake mix assumes that you have eggs, oil, water, and a kitchen. And so we were able to bring that conversation back to the parish and explain, this is what we're hearing from community members that use this resource, that it's much better if it's a pop top can of soup that they can eat now. And we started keeping things like that along with plastic spoons in the little free pantry. So you can literally open it and get a meal. But it's the kinds of things that you don't know until you're engaging with the people that utilize resources and listening to their voices. Another thing we've really tried to work on is emphasizing that when we do these projects, we want to do them as unto the Lord. And so we really want to be providing quality things for our
Yes.
members. We don't want to fill our little free pantry with expired foods. We want, if a food pantry wouldn't take it, then we don't want to be putting that out there. And so some of that has been a learning curve. And people have lots of different feelings around some of those kinds of things. But I think that's good. I think it's good for us to think about, to take another's perspective and think about what we would want if we were in that scenario.
We also have some fairly large we have a large homeless population because we're in an urban area, and one of our Presbyterian churches downtown runs a homeless shelter. And oftentimes, we're from Texas, and in Texas, it's insanely hot here. And in the summers, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And so the homeless shelter has given us instructions on putting together like a summer survival kit for people that are unhoused. So it has some specific things for people that are unhoused during the really hot summer months. And so that's been a good project too.
Yeah. I love that idea of this is really going to vary by your environment, right? Like you're much less likely to need summer survival in Maine, but boy, do you need winter socks and, those little silver Mylar space blankets and the hand warmers that you can put inside your gloves. And so it's nice that some of these projects are really easy to sort of customize for your, program, church, environment, whatever the case may be, which is helpful too.
Linda, how big is the parish that you were working with?
We're little.
Well, what's little mean to you?
On an average Sunday, I would say on an average Sunday, you would have 50 people.
Okay.
In the service. The number of children and families, we had a lot of attrition in children and families with COVID. So that's been really hard. But I would say for a given service project, we might have we really never knew who was going to show up. My son could tell you sometimes it was just him and he was always there. But we would generally be pretty thrilled if we had like five or six kids of all ages there for a project. It's a very rural area. And we compete with a lot of things on Sundays, like lots of other folks do. Sports, especially, travel sports, those kinds of things. So I guess small is in the eye of the beholder. I think of it as fairly small, but there are smaller churches and of course many larger.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Emily.
Melinda, I'm curious about what kinds of, what has been the administrative lift for you? What kinds of work do you have to do before the event happens? And how has that felt for you to, are you calling venues? Are you, what does it look like beforehand?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will tell you it's like a lot of things that I've experienced in various aspects of my career or ministry, that the first time you do it, it's a lot. And then after that, it's a lot less. So the first year connecting with our essentials closet, it took a while. We had to figure out who is the person that you connect with. And then we had to kind of explain to them, this is what we want to do. Do you need like, do you need diapers? Is that a thing? Or is there something else we could get? And then trying to coordinate with them logistically, like, can you be open on a Sunday morning for us to visit and learn about your resource? And like, how are people going to get there? Are they going to ride together? Are they going to, thankfully, for that project, the Essentials Closet is very close to our church. Not, I wouldn't say walking distance, but it's not far. But so yeah, that first time, just figuring it all out, it can be quite a bit. I would say we were probably doing a little more than our 5 hours a week on some of these projects the first time around. But we really have found once you have it down, it goes much more easily. And the parish gets the hang of it too, right? Like if you do a diaper drive at the same time every fall, it becomes kind of part of the rhythm of the church. And people remember, like, oh, this is the place where we put the diapers. You don't have to talk about it as much or explain it as much, because unless they're new people, they just sort of know. And everyone kind of knows, like, oh yeah, we set up around the square tables, we each pick a diaper spot, we each get a Sharpie. So it's a lot up front the first time. The first year we started doing that was really intense. Like doing a new project almost every month for the first time was a lot. But it's not so much now. And now we have some folks taking over some of those because we've stepped back. And so some of our work right now is just sort of like training other folks, like, this is how we did it, and kind of figuring out how to pass the baton. I would say, as much as you can, as with anything, pull in other people. So it's much less heavy lifting for us if Sarah, who loves working with migrant workers and knows a lot about that, wants to step in and teach about that and set up that activity. So we're buying the socks and buying the rice, and setting up the tables. We're helping with the logistics, but she's kind of providing the content. So it takes a lot of that burden off of you if you have a partner within the parish who's passionate about it and is willing to kind of be the other half of the project for you, so to speak. And sometimes people want to help, but they're not sure what to do. So they might say, like, is there anything you need for this project? And instead of saying like, oh no, we're all set, which is the natural inclination, right? I say, like, actually, yeah, are you going to a store this week? We could really use 200 Ziploc bags, gallon size, and we'll pay for it. But like, if they're going out to a store anyway and it saves me a trip, that's great. So I think, and again, recognizing that that's a way a person can participate. They might not even be there the day the project happens, but they contributed in their own way on their own time. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm just babbling.
How did you think up the ideas for these projects?
Primarily because of the field I work in. So I work in social services, I work in resource connection. At the time we started these projects, I was doing home visiting. And so I was going out to people's houses every week to provide parent coaching in their homes. And so I was seeing every day, all day, the reality of some of the needs. That's particularly where the diaper project came about. So some of it was just like, I see this, it's a need. What is our church doing about it? And some of the ideas came from other parish members. They would say, like, oh, I have a friend who is doing, all this work with Meals on Wheels, and or whatever the case may be. So sometimes folks in the parish would have a connection that they would bring up, like the migrant worker project. Sarah said, if you have space in the slate, I'd love to do a project around this. So kind of surveying your parish too, like, what is your passion? What's a place you volunteer with outside of church? Is that something you can help the rest of our parish to be connected with? I will tell you too, that migrant worker project, what you didn't see in the picture, when she does that project, she also brings food samples of all the crops. So she brings blueberries and she brings Maine apples. So the kinds of things that the migrant workers are harvesting, everybody gets a taste of those things too. So that makes, again, everybody loves food, right? So it kind of gives a little taste of that. But so I think kind of between knowing the people in your parish and what they're passionate about volunteer wise themselves outside of church, and then if you don't have a person doing like if you are a formation person and you're maybe less connected to resources in the community than I am, it's just the nature of my work. It's not anything special, but it's just what I happen to do. Then maybe finding, like, is there a person in the parish that I could have a conversation with around what are the felt needs in our communities? What have you seen as you're out, driving around doing your job every day? I'm real big on listening to the voices of lived experience in as many parts of life as I can. So it's always better to hear firsthand from the people that are out there doing it than to assume, I have found.
Yeah, I would think if you can't think of anybody in your parish, I live in a small town, so talk to the firefighters, talk to the police, talk to the guidance counselors at the high school and the middle school. They see an awful lot, and they would be able to guide you.
That's a great tip. We're fortunate that our parish, for whatever reason, is very education heavy. We have a lot of like school nurse, school social worker, teacher, college professors in our parish, which is wonderful. And so they do bring some great perspective and great ideas to the table. Absolutely.
I also just want to sort of throw in, I have had parishioners who sort of don't have that, like they don't volunteer for any special organizations. They don't have sort of outside passions. They do everything for the church. But what they also do, they are makers, they are knitters, they do needlepoint, they love to sing. And so finding ways to incorporate the gifts of the parish into this outreach so that they're not sort of excluded because they're not in sort of the social work. So that's kind of another way. Passions aren't just about kind of responding directly to needs, but also putting beauty and art into the means of response, I think is a nice way to
Love that. We have actually we have a pretty active knitters group, and we were able to connect them with the organization in our area. I don't know if this is a thing in other places, but there's a number of regions in Maine where there's an annual community baby shower where local organizations all gather in a large space and have resource tables, and there's crib and car seat giveaways and clothing closets and all kinds of things. So expectant parents can come and sort of shop the tables and get things for their babies, but also learn about community resources. And so our knitters group actually knitted a whole pile of little like baby washcloths for the gift bags for the community baby shower. Other things that can involve the church, one Sunday we had folks help with the polishing for the I didn't grow up Episcopalian, and sometimes I don't remember the terms. Like all the things that have to be polished for Advent to make things look pretty, like the candlesticks and the offering plates and the chalices and things. So one week we had the Altar Guild show kind of like the work that they do. And so that's something within the church, but that is, important and that they feel strongly about. And then the kids got to try polishing things, and they, like it's fun. Like the cloth turns all black and you can see the results right there. And so we had talked with our church's gardener. She's not like a professional gardener, but she does all the flowers for church. And we had talked with her at one point about, it would be neat to have her walk the families, whoever shows up, around the church gardens and show, like, this is how I get the flowers ready for a Sunday. And then maybe everybody can make a little bouquet to give to someone they know that is in need of cheering up. So I do think there's a lot of places where the ministries within the church could also potentially be a piece of this.
I know of one church that had a number of quilters, and they had a day, a whole day workshop with like middle school and up, where they taught them to quilt, and they made quilt tops that they finished off into baby blankets and then gave to a group that needed it. So
That's amazing. I love that.
yeah.
Also, I'm sorry, I don't want to hog, but I know that sometimes the community can come to you when we have, of course, you know, we have parades. We just had a incident yesterday, but when during St. Patrick's Day and Pride Festival and things like that, there are people who walk right by the church, and to contact the organizers well in advance of the event that you are willing to open your street level bathrooms to be changing stations, to be water stations. And unlike when you open your space for voting, you can have all manner of evangelism pamphlets, outreach things, invite the kids and their families to your nursery, to your Sunday school, to your VBS, to your listening pew, to whatever it is that you have. So you can invite people into your space to, and I'm not talking about a bait and switch or make them, you know, it's not a Salvation Army, like you have to sit through the show before you get your diaper. But in the packet that you hand out that has extra diapers or extra water bottle or whatever, it can have a little piece of beautiful invitational information about your parish and ways that what you provide. Oh, you have a kid? Well, here's what we do. Oh, you're thirsty? Here's what we do. Oh, you know, just like to make those connections to the community that can come into your space in community events when they are invited for a need, a sort of outreach things.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. That's an amazing thing for, again, so thinking about how would my church's physical location in the community be a fit for particular types of service or outreach, right? So the little free pantry made a lot of sense for us because we're right by a hospital and a boys and girls club. Someone made a comment of like, I think those kids are coming over and taking all the food. I was like, that's fine. That's what it's there for. Like, maybe they need it, maybe they don't, but that's what it's there for. So, but if we were on like a major route like that, that's, I mean, what an incredible opportunity. I love that.
Wheels turning, ideas coming. Emily, did you have something else you wanted to say? I saw your hand up earlier.
I was going to ask a cheeky question. I was going to ask, you know, it sounds like there's a lot of excitement in this group, and I'm imagining, Melinda, that you get a lot of excitement at your parish too. Do you get negative messages? Do you get people that are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I mean, right, there's always going to be somebody. I think the longer we've done some of the things, the more that quiets down because people see the impact. But there's always going to be a little naysaying. And I read a quote that I really love. It's hard for me to remember it, but I try that if you're doing a good job, about 15% of the people will hate it.
Oh, I love that.
That made me feel better, honestly, because I think it's true. Like, you're not going to please everyone, especially when it comes to things that the church's time and money are used for. People have really strong feelings, right, about how the church's money is used. And I understand that. And so we did get, for example, with the little free pantry, we got pushback around saying no expired food because among a few people, there was sort of an attitude of like, these people should be grateful for whatever they get. Which is not the opinion that I am of. I think that everybody deserves good things. And I've had enough, friends and colleagues and people I've worked with who have been in really challenging life situations, and times in my life when I have been in really challenging situations. And I'm glad somebody didn't look at me and say, you should be grateful for whatever you get for your baby. Um, you know, so, but I really would say, honestly, that's a very small minority. I think, like, being against giving people food and diapers, like it's a pretty tough sell to be against that. I mean, you can go for it if you want, have at it, but you're not going to be like super popular probably. And usually those people don't care about being popular. So a lot of it is with that, having some strong backup from your priest or whoever is, we've been very fortunate that we've had 3 different priests in the course of those 8 years. And they've all been very supportive. And if anyone had an issue with anything, they were told, you'll need to speak with the priest about that. And we just moved forward, and it was taken care of primarily outside of us, which was really nice to feel like we could just do the work and somebody kind of had our backs around the politics, if there were any. And Jennifer's been waiting very patiently.
I was just gonna say that I encountered something similar to what Emily's talking about. So sometimes you can do things that you can couch things that you're already doing in different ways. And I presented it to like a committee, like, oh, we're going to do reverse Advent, right? Or whatever the program, right? And what I got was, well, we already give to the food bank and to network. We already do that once a month. And I was like, yes, but this is a targeted giving campaign. This is and maybe you'll get people that don't normally donate. And if it's a church-wide campaign, or initiative. And so that happened this past November. We did the reverse Advent. We did different things during the month of November, and basically wound up collecting like 1,000 pounds of food or some. I mean, like an amazing amount of donations for the food bank. And the person who kind of poo-pooed it in the very beginning came back to me and said, wow, I mean, that was amazing. Like, so you just have to maybe keep pushing a little bit. And
yeah, I feel the same way, Jennifer. Like sometimes when people see how well it goes, the impact that the tune changes a little bit. And we've had some diverse representation of many different viewpoints in our parish represented at service projects over the years. And some of that is too, like, listening and validating, even just like, I hear you, I understand your concern. I'd be happy to bring that up with the vestry and get their thought. Just sometimes people just want to be heard and know that their concern didn't just go out into the wind. And that's what we all want to be heard. And so sometimes it's as simple as that. Just and it does feel like some of these things are because we've been doing them for years now, have become like traditions, like there's the Easter breakfast, and there's all the traditions of the church, and there's the diaper drive, and so it's the other thing I forgot to mention, but that can be really neat, is if you live in an area that has, so maybe this is just like a small town Maine thing, but our local newspaper in the town that our church is in has like a community events page where they share, like, anybody can send in, like, this kid got their Eagle Scout award this weekend, and so we can send in to them a picture from our diaper drive, and they'll put a little thing in the newspaper the next day of like St. Mark's Church gathers 6,000 diapers to meet local needs. And so then too, others in the community are kind of seeing what the church is involved in. And it, I want to be a church that's known for meeting the felt needs of the community. And so it's not about showing off like, look what our church did, but more about making sure people realize that there are places that are doing good work if they want to be part of it. And B, that this is probably a church you can go to if you need help with something, and they're a helping church.
Mhm.
We no longer have a newspaper. It's died, as it has in many places, but we have town Facebook groups.
Mhm.
And so when something like that happens at St. Matthew's, we put a picture and a little information on it in the town Facebook groups. And
Great idea.
that seems to help some of that. It's too bad there's no longer a paper, but
No, I have never thought of it that way, but I do think like those town social media groups are replacing a lot of that function for folks now. And I do see a lot of benefit. We have there is a local group for the church, not for the church. The town the church is in has a very active Facebook group. And so we will sometimes put things in there about events that are happening. I'm encouraged because when someone comes to that page and says like, oh, we're new in town, we're looking for like an open and affirming church, our church always gets mentioned, which I love. And we might not be great at everything, but we've got the open and affirming thing down, which I'm proud of. And I do think that people see that we're trying to be out there doing things, and in a no strings attached kind of way, because there are sometimes programs in the community that you need to like attend a church service to get the help, or whatever the case may be. And so we generally try to make these things, we're just doing this because we love you and we want to meet a need, and whatever comes of it is what comes of it.
Yeah. One church I served at, we were trying to highlight donations to the food pantry. And so we came up with the idea of a food of the month. So like in June, we did peanut butter and jelly because schools are getting out and kids need that. We did a bunch of stuff for kids during the summer, and then we did different things in the winter. And it helped people to remember, rather than just saying bring something. If we said bring stew, it's like, oh, I can put that on my grocery list. And that seemed to help a lot with just helping people to remember that kind of thing. St. Matthew's also, well, Goffstown has their food pantry has a program for kids on vacations and weekends. And they have backpacks that they fill with food that kids can either microwave or just eat cold. And that's really important for those kids who get school breakfast and lunch for those days when they don't have it.
And this is another, I think, great example of like knowing the needs of your local, like that's a need for the kids in your community. We are very fortunate that the school in the big elementary school in the town where our church is has a food pantry in it, and every child in the school regardless of need, goes home with a bag of food every Friday. So nobody is singled out. Every child, just as they're walking to the bus, here's a bag, here's a bag, here's a bag. So they don't have to ask for it. Nobody sees like, oh, that kid has a bag of food. And so it is really helpful to get to know the community, like what's already being met, where are the gaps that we might be able to help plug in a little bit. And certainly nothing that we're doing in these projects is meeting all the need of something, but it's meeting part of a need. And if lots of people or places meet part of a need, then we get closer to the need being met.
And I love that you do a teaching piece for the people in your congregation so they know why there's a need and that there is one. And I grew up in California in a town that in a school that had lots of migrant worker kids in and out all the time. So I'm very aware of that even here. But I think they tend to be an invisible population often. And, so having somebody who can highlight that is so great, being able to talk to the people who are giving out the diapers and talk about why they need it and that they can't get it with SNAP benefits and, things like that. Makes a big difference.
Yeah. And sometimes it's us doing the teaching piece if for whatever reason we haven't made a great connection with a community member. I do try to pull in other people as much as possible because I think it's more meaningful, but I'll never forget. I think people are needing to get going, but I'll end with a funny thing. So one Sunday when we were doing the care kits, I was asking folks, why do you think this is a need? Why, what's happening that so many people are having to be, kind of out on the streets or not in safe housing? And this one kiddo we have who he's older now, but I think he was probably 12, very precocious, pipes up and says, well, per this article I read in the Atlantic this week, it's probably due to the gentrification of previously redlined districts. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay.
And then you had to explain to the adults what redlining
like, okay. Yes. Would you like to do the teaching for this service project, young man? But it's amazing what the kids, it makes me sound old, right? But like kids today know so much more about what's going on in the world and in their communities than I did when I was in middle school and high school. And they want things that they can do to help. They want to feel like they're doing something, not just learning about something, but doing something. And so we're trying to give them an avenue.
Yeah. Any last comments, thoughts? Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Oh my goodness. I'm very pleasantly surprised. So.
Yeah. This was great. And I'm sure everybody's going back to their parishes going, okay, where am I going to start? And thinking it through. My one comment about starting new things is give yourself plenty of lead time. Don't do it fast. It's the one thing I've learned in the last.
Yeah, when I say like we start collecting the diapers a month ahead or whatever, I would say like as soon as we're done one project, we're like starting to think about like the next months, because it, depending on the pieces, you want to just make sure, like you want to be announcing it every week at the service. You don't want to wait till the week before to announce it. And so there are some things that can wait till the week before to be prepped, but you really want to start getting the word out. I would say three-ish weeks ahead is good lead time for most things. I'm going to put my email in the chat if anybody wants to email and ask questions or chat any further. It's a Hotmail because I got it in college and I'm in my mid 40s now and never changed it. So enjoy that. I just read something about how you shouldn't, if you should get a Gmail if you're like my age, because if you have like a resume or something, employers will think you're like
Much older than you
like
are.
you're like not with it if you have a Hotmail address. So I post my Hotmail email with shame in the comments.
Further back in the chat, I posted the link to the Episcopal Province 1 YouTube channel, and that's where all these recordings live. We've been doing these meetings for about 3 years now, and every month is different. Next month, we're going to be talking about Rhythms of Grace, which is a program that incorporates neurodiverse children and adults into a specially designed worship service for them. And we have somebody coming from Chico, California to do that. And so that's what's up next month. We meet the third Thursday of every month. So, and I will put my email in here if you guys have questions or want to know anything else about it. There we go. So I will see you all next month, maybe.
Thanks, Lynette. See,
Have a
Lynette,
good
you have a
evening.
Gmail.
Yes, I have Gmail.
I'm
That's
very
because
impressed.
my first email address was Ecunet, which no longer exists.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.